Greetings, brothers and sisters. So they're burning Bill Gates for some reason. We don't know why, and we don't know what that will mean for Bill Gates and the rest of the world. But he is definitely being exposed as a creep. And before, that was not possible. Like, Bill Gates has always been a horrible human being, just in terms of the way he ran Microsoft and Microsoft's influence on the culture and, its influence on the internet and computers and all these things. And Microsoft always sucked under Bill Gates. And then there was his foundation, which was completely BS, promoting horrible things. And so eugenics and things like this. And the guy has just been creepy, a heartless guy, right? So he was a guy who Microsoft got sued for antitrust and violating all these ethical laws. And the way that they handled the browser wars, their crappy Windows Explorer browser that led to all the Mozilla stuff, the Firefox stuff, and things like that. Just the way he handled all of that stuff showed you he was a bad person. An evil person, right? The way that Microsoft was run and the way it treated other software companies and the way it sort of got a monopoly on computers and things like this. Showed you, and the way they stole information, they stole technology, and they just, they did bad things. And so then he became the richest man in the world, even though he had done it under nefarious ways. I mean, the richest man in the world based in, there's richer people, there's richer families, but Bill Gates was, the one that they said, this is the person they're saying is the richest person in the world. And then he sort of retires from Microsoft and rebrands himself as a philanthropist, somebody who he started the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was billed as he just wants to heal and help the world. But everything that he pushed from his foundation was not that, right? And, he didn't have a good heart. He's not a good person. You could tell he's not a good person, that he doesn't have some loving heart, and he wants to use his money to better the world. Like, you could see just by looking at him. Like, when you become a spiritual person and you get more sensitive and you're, less thinking about yourself, it's easy for you to read other people. It's just easy for you to look at people and see what kind of person they are. That's one of the blessings of the Heartfulness Meditation. I was a trained counselor. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I had to do assessment. And I did psychological assessments for a while. I was trained in how to do psychological assessments. And I was good at them because I had a natural predisposition for this thing. It's something I present in my videos. And then when you do the heartfulness meditation, you become more sensitive and you become aware of other people's energy and you can feel them, like their essence or whatever it is. And the longer you do it, the more that increases. And it was something that I was, I had a natural sort of talent for, and being introverted and self-reflective. And you can look at Bill Gates and just see he's not somebody that would do good things for other people. He's not a generous person or a person with a good heart. Bill Gates reportedly asked out several women in his office while married. And so these are the things that are now coming out about him. Jeffrey Epstein gave advice to Bill Gates about ending his marriage to Melinda. This is from the Sunday Times. Strippers, affairs, private jets, bitter business feuds, driving offenses, naked pool parties. A fuller picture of Bill Gates' life is emerging, and he may not be the squeaky clean nerd we thought. We never thought that. A squeaky clean nerd would have the secret life of Bill Gates. And so there's articles coming out. He was never that guy. That was just a brand. He wasn't a nice person. Like, nobody would think this guy's a nice person if they had any ability to perceive other people. Bill Gates had a reputation for questionable behavior before divorce. Microsoft board investigated Bill Gates over alleged affair with employee. The rise and fall of Bill Gates. Bad press continues to dog Bill Gates amid reports he was pushed off of Microsoft. Bill Gates pursued several women in his office during marriage. To Melinda report, Bill Gates' nerdy do-gooder image destroyed by divorce revelations. Bill Gates acknowledged an affair with an employee which Microsoft investigated. All these things. Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And there's things to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Melinda Gates warned Bill Gates about Jeffrey Epstein, and that was a part of the divorce. I mean, there's all these things that are coming out, right? And why? Why are they coming out? That's the big question. Because this was always Bill Gates. Just like, you know, just like there's all this press about Israel's treatment of Palestine. I made a video about this yesterday on the apocalaughsnow channel. Why? Why all of a sudden? So there's two parts to this. That, time and time again, things that people said in the truth community, like I've been covering that Ellen's not a nice person, like her brand said she was for years. And, now that comes around and stuff with Bill Gates, who has been somebody that the truth community has talked about in terms of his stuff with eugenics and all the things, right? Which is depopulation, his involvement with the UN, all the things that he's done. We've been right time and time again. I've been right personally. The truth community has been right over things that I consider obvious. And we've been, censored and demonized and called crazy conspiracy theorists. But we're always ahead of the game. Like it's time and time again, this stuff comes out. Of course, they're not going to go as far as they should, the mainstream media. Because what they should say is, he's billed himself as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that they're a team and a partnership. And that's the way he treated his wife. Like, that's the way he treated, I mean, that's the, official story or whatever it is. I know people think it's, a man and all these things, whatever. But in terms of the official story, the guy treated his wife horribly based in, what's coming out. That he wasn't a moral person. He wasn't somebody that's out for other people, Like, he was never that guy at Microsoft. What do you think? He had a change of heart one day? He decides to use all of his billions to make the world a better place and help other people with his foundation? No, of course he wasn't. He was never a good person. So if his foundation wasn't about doing good things for other people, then what was it about, right? What's the purpose of his foundation if he isn't a good person and he doesn't want to help the world? He doesn't want to share his billions with other people. He doesn't want to, make the world a better place. Then what's the true purpose of his foundation? And there's been lawsuits with his foundation in India and other places for some of the things that they pushed out there. Again, eugenics. He got the UN Depopulation Award. The UN has a population award, which is about people who reduce the population. Because there is a population problem. I mean, no one wants to acknowledge it. And the way that they're dealing with it, nobody would think is a good thing. Like the way that they've structured this, the way that they're pushing this out there is bad for everybody. It's not a way that anybody would think is moral or fair or any of these things. So the second piece to this is why now? Why are they burning him now? Is something going to happen they need a fall guy for? Is there something bad that's going to happen? They want to pin it on him or, is he going to take the fall for something that's going on right now that's going to go south? Right? Like, why now? Why are they burning Bill Gates now? Because, they don't have to. Like, you understand this? The way the media works now, look at what they're doing with Joe Biden. Like, they completely slammed Joe Biden. There's that 2015 hit piece by CNN's Breonna Keeler. CNN pushed this out there, and they have all of it in there. I showed you this over and over again. The video's up on YouTube of them slamming Joe Biden, calling him a screw up, calling him a groper and a snoozler and somebody that shouldn't run for president because they wanted Hillary, and they were doing a political hit piece on him. And then they rebrand him and pretend they never knew that he was like this and that he's some kind of great guy. They're ignoring his obvious problems with dementia and things like this, and they just don't cover it. They refuse to say anything until they want to burn him and put in Kamala or something, right? Until they want to, and then all of a sudden they'll come out and say, oh, look what a horrible person he is. I mean, it's just so bad. The media is just so bad, right? Because they are just liars and deceivers. They never are accountable for obviously missing big, doing any investigative reporting. Like this affair with Bill Gates is something nobody knew about and nobody cared about until now, right? Like it was never a newsworthy story. A guy that they were claiming is the richest man in the world got fired from Microsoft for inappropriate behavior with an employee. And that's not newsworthy until, 15 years later, when all of a sudden all this negative information is coming out about him. His relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was never news because that's a questionable, I mean, somebody who's involved with children all across the globe with his foundation, Bill Gates, and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein isn't newsworthy, right, until now. So that's how the media does it. They just pretend like they've done a great job all along and that they were never responsible for investigative reporting. They're told, okay, Bill Gates is fair game. Israel is fair game. They're told that, and then formerly protected groups or formerly protected people are then targeted. Then all of a sudden the narrative has shifted. But it's their job to know all these things and actually break news and report things, and they just, I mean, it's so bad in the news media. It's so opposite of what it's supposed to be. And it also goes to show you that they can burn you at any time. They can turn on you at a moment's notice. And all these celebrities and politicians know it, that they are at the mercy of the people that pull the strings of the media and the culture and all these things. At any moment, they could just turn on you and destroy you and just destroy your brand. And, and it's just accepted by the sheeple that, have no ability to critically think and ask these questions I'm asking in the video, this video right now. Like, why now? Like, they didn't know this guy was a creep before. And there's information out there that Warren Buffett is Bill Gates' friend and he's been protecting him, all these things like this. There's all this speculation. The other parts of this is, they hide money in foundations. I've talked about how the royal family was doing this, and even, Meghan Markle's and her hubby, they have their own foundation aside from this. And I watched that movie. It was about J. Paul Getty, and he was the richest man in the world. And his grandson got kidnapped, and the mother was begging him for help, financial help, so that they could pay the kidnappers. And he had no money, even though he was the richest man in the world. His money was all hidden because they don't want to pay taxes, right? These foundations are a way for them to avoid billions of dollars in paying taxes. And so that's something, right? That's something that's out there. And so his foundation was in part to do with that. No one wants to pay $14 billion in taxes, $1 trillion in taxes and things. And that's what people would owe, right? If they make so much money and then they owe, I mean, now it's like 40% of their income and state taxes, all these things. And so they set up these foundations, and they don't have access to the cash that people think they do. They don't have the ability to spend money like people think they do because their money is, tied up in these tax havens. But a bigger part of this is, you can see this with the whole confusion over the masks thing. You had this Saturday Night Live did a cold open. I was going to cover it, but it was just, I knew it'd be an issue. It is about the new mask policies that Fauci's released. And what this shows you, what has happened now, is that at least, 50%, and maybe everybody to some extent, doesn't trust the government and the media anymore in a way that is, if something really was about to happen, like there was and there was going to be these things, because this is part of the Heartfulness meditation. I mean, there's a big thing going to happen in 2025 or 26. I'm going to talk about that more in future videos. But there's something going to happen that's a real game changer, much bigger than any of the things like these other events, bombshell events that have happened in the past, 20 years or so. These big changing things are preliminary. They're just, teasers or appetizers to things that are going to come in the future. And so there's going to be big things that are going to happen. And when the government asks for help or wants people to do some things, and it might be for our own good, who knows what it's going to be, right? The media, most of us, the majority of people, don't trust the government anymore. That's why these things are failing right now. There's a total lack of trust because of, obscurantism, which I've talked about in the past, terms of the Heartfulness Meditation Whispers messages, that the age of obscurantism is over. The truth has to come out. The people who are running the system, and I more than anybody else in the truth community, I empathize with the people that run the system, because I also see how bad human beings suck, and the inability for people to accept bad news and the truth, and how easy it is for people to get manipulated by lies. And so if I was running the system, I know I would be stressed out, right? I mean, the people who are running the system don't care. They just care about themselves. So, that's part of it. But I would never take one of these jobs. Like, I mean, people suck so bad as a whole. So there's, reasons for them lying to us, right? There's reasons for withholding the truth. I mean, part of it was for their financial gain and to control the system. They didn't do it for the betterment of humanity. And they told a lot of lies and just about the origin of our species and the true purpose here and all the things to do with human behavior, extraterrestrials and all these other things. Big, big controlling organizations, religions that lied to the people. And now people are, they have these fundamental building blocks to their understanding of the world, their understanding of their life on planet Earth, their understanding of God, their understanding of the true nature of human life and things like this, the origin of our species. They've been told all these lies, all this Darwinian crap and all the rest of it. And so, in religion and science, both have been manipulated and, distorted. And so now, people having grown up without true knowledge and who have been manipulated into this debt-based, hedonistic way of life, pleasure-based system that's collapsing, and people have become weaker and weaker. I mean, it's just a freaking disaster. I think about how bad things are, how weak people are at a time where there's going to be big changes. And the government and the media have lost trust. The official story, the people who are in charge have lost trust. Like, it's worse than a cheating husband. It's a husband that's tried to murder his, wife and family or whatever it is, right? It's worse than like just a bad guy or, a bad person. It is, it's just years and years of being deceptive and lying to us all and just have lost control, like lost control of the population. Like you can't get like half the population to do things now, to agree to things, right? There's resistance no matter what, methods they use. I mean, just recent events have shown that they're pushing something really hard, and it hasn't, been accepted by people. They don't trust it. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the media. And that's, I mean, it's people suck. But if you're a liar and you're, bad people, which the people that run the system are, eventually these things can catch up to you, and they have. Like they're catching up now and then forward into the future. And so, again, like we see these protected groups, these protected countries and protected people being burned. You can check out my other video about the, Israel-Palestine thing on my other channel. You're Finally Talking About This is the name of it. But what you see is the ending of things, right? They have to, they're sacrificing, parts of themselves, right? People who are a part of the establishment. They have to sacrifice and burn, organizations and people and countries. And you'll see this. I mean, it's going to happen to America. Like America's going to take an absolute frickin' pummeling over the next 20 to whatever years. Americans, all of us as well. It's just, right? There's privileges and things that are going to be removed, and then there's going to be a lot of blame placed on America. People are going to hate Americans globally, and I mean, there's all these things are happening because their narrative and their control is slipping from their grasp. They no longer have control over their narratives and all these things, over the deception, over the illusion. It's the end of a yuga. And so I've said this all along. We don't have to take down the so-called elite. I mean, so much of the truth community is about taking down the elite and seeing people destroyed. When Don Lemons made his fake announcement, then I made a spoof video and people took it seriously. Like, I don't know how. I guess maybe some of them didn't watch the Don Lemons video. But Don Lemons, when he made this goofy, manipulative announcement, and people fell for it that he was leaving CNN, and then there was all these comments people left saying they were so sad or bummed out that Don Lemon isn't leaving CNN, why do you care? Like, why do you care what happens at CNN? Like, for me, it would be a bummer because I spent so much time mocking these guys and I know them. Like, then I have to, then I have to find out more about a new loser to, like, then I have to, spend time, waste my time finding out how to make fun of the next guy, right? And so this thing was way better than him getting caught pretending he was going to leave. Like, I'm not watching CNN. Like, it's not like, oh my God, there's going to be a good replacement. Like, it's just going to be another person like Don Lemons, right? It's going to be another person like Chris Cuomo's. Like, I don't care if these guys leave or not, right? I mean, that's why I don't care about cancel culture, because I don't care about the official story. Like, so they're just going to replace it with another person. Like, even if Bill Gates goes down, I'm not celebrating, other than the sense that we've been right all along, other than the sense that I've, covered this and been right. Yeah, that's, I guess something that's good. But in terms of what happens in the official story, I know what's happening. If they're not going to replace it with a good person, they're burning people because the thing's collapsing. Because there is a new paradigm coming in. There is a spiritual paradigm. And that everybody who, all of us have been addicted to a system that's bad for us, and that we have to do something different, right? We have to change to adapt. The people who adapt are going to survive this, and not just in terms of surviving it in this life as a human being, but in future existences. You have to get with this new movement, or you're going to be left behind as a soul, right? Left behind as a spiritual essence. The establishment is coming down, and the way that we have lived, and our attitudes and our behaviors, and disconnecting from God and running away from our true purpose and our soul's purpose is collapsing, right? This stuff is, it's over, right? The system that we're 100% dependent on, and the whole orientation of the system, the whole existence, and the way people are supposed to behave in the system, and what our goals are in terms of materialism and all these things, that's over, right? It's just the resolution, the climax has already happened in a sense, right? It's like it's been shown that it's unsustainable, and all of us have to move towards something different. And the people that control the system are trying to control this collapse. They're trying to control this and force some Agenda 21 BS or whatever it is, get people even farther away from God and their family, and control them in various ways through technology and transhumanism and all these different things. But everything that they do is doomed for failure. Like, it's just goes against the will of God, right? And so we're in this transitional period between a dying system and a system that we have no concept of, in a way of living that we're not familiar with. On a soul level, it's there. On a spiritual level, there's a craving for it. But on an egotistical mental level, people aren't prepared for it at all, and aren't going to want it, aren't going to like it, because they're attached to their lifestyle. They're attached to their pleasures and, whatever it is, right? Things that they're addicted to, things that you can't, conceive of living without. I mean, I'm aware of this more than most people, having done, the opposite, having done some self-sufficient homesteading stuff. I realize how the system has taken care of our needs in ways that has made us weaker and more dependent on something that was never sustainable. And so this thing's collapsing, and then we have to adjust ourselves and prepare ourselves for the way the world's going to be in the future. And there is the heartfulness system, which has been given for this, for this time period, this adjustment, where the attention is on your internal world, and just adjusting people on a soul level, on a subtle body level, and on an internal level, a spiritual level first, and helping them connect to God in a deeper way. And then from, that process, helping your ego and your mind and your mental capacity and your personality adjust and accept the changes that are coming. Changes that people aren't consciously wanting to happen. They are on a soul level, but on a human level are not. And so all of these things that are collapsing on the external world are part of that, a part of that movement. There is a movement away from the way that we've been trained to live materially, and the spiritual movement that our egos are really resistant to. And I've seen it over and over again. For people who have done the heartfulness system, there's just a struggle, right? There's a struggle to accept the discipline of living a life where you're serving God and you're doing what your soul wants to do. There's just, there's things that are difficult in general. And when you have a weakened population that's completely materially oriented, it's even harder. And so it's not like once you find your spiritual path, it becomes easy. It's just the opposite, because now, the way that you've been trained to live, the way that you've thought life is supposed to pamper you and be about pleasures and all these things, makes accepting material truths. When you have people in the so-called truth community, most of you are just accepting the truths that are easy for you to accept, right? They're easy for people to say, all right, it's just those bad guys over there. Bill Gates and people like him. It's just the so-called elite, the deep state. I mean, that's all the cubies or the woke people. It's just the establishment, right? The white establishment, or the misogynistic male-run old guard, or whatever it is, right? The different aspects of the liberal version of being awake and the conservative version of being awake. But very few people want to think about what they've done and what you are and what you need to change, right? Being reflective about how you've contributed to the problem and the things that you have to give up and the things that you have to change, right? It's just let's get rid of those, bad group of people over there. It's easy to externalize the problem and blame it on everybody else. And that's easy to do. Like that, if you're doing that, if you're finding out, things about, the so-called elite and thinking they're the only problem, they're just a reflection of the collective. They're a reflection of all of us. Yeah, they're, bad leaders and selfish and evil, but they're just a reflection of all of us. We get the leaders that we deserve. Things have to be congruent on the inside with what's happening on the outside. Your external world is a reflection of what you have on the inside. And so it's your insides that need to change, and then the external world will change, collectively and individually. And people have to accept that, and they're not going to want to at first. I mean, they're not going to want to accept the truth about themselves and what everyone needs to do to make this thing better. And so this transition will be difficult. This, paradigm shift is going to be difficult, because you have weak people that are, they want the truth but don't want it, right? They want the truth until they get it. And I can say this personally, it's just something, you want the truth, and then when you find out what it is, like that Cypher character in the Matrix, you want to go back in, you want to forget it. I didn't know it was going to be this, right? Oh, this is the truth. Oh, put me back in the Matrix, put me back asleep. It's easy to see this in other people. When you talk to your loved ones and relatives about what's going on, and they just put up a wall, you can feel the wall going up between you. They're like, don't tell me that. They're just not receptive to what you're saying. They go into you see their eyes glaze over, and they just won't be able to hear it. And I see this, on a daily basis in my videos. Even what I'm saying now, there's people listening to this right now, and they can't really perceive of it. They're not, willing to deal with what they're hearing. I thought this was about Bill Gates, right? I didn't know this was about me. It's easy to accept that Bill Gates is a bad person, but what about the rest of us, right? What about human beings in general? Because if you just go to Walmart, any Walmart, especially in areas where there's poverty and things like this, you'll see the condition of human beings. You go through the streets of China or India, and you go to the places where the poor people live, and just see that there is just the lack of consciousness. People are malnourished, and they're devoid of, as bad as people are on the internet, as bad as entitled little brats people are, and Americans are. At least you've had enough level of privileges and education and nutrition and things like this that you have some ability to think for yourselves, and some physical strength and things like this. Whereas, in so many places around the world, but even in America, people don't have a chance at all. They just don't have a chance. They're not given enough physical nutrition. They're starving, right? 25 kids a day starve to death. They don't develop any sort of ability for critical thinking skills, their life is a struggle from day one. Like half the population lives on $2 a day or less, a third on $1 a day. And so their, parents are struggling. They live in abusive circumstances, and they just are, life's a struggle until they die, right? There's no joy. Years ago, I was watching this special on, some sort of nature show on elephants. And there was this place in Africa where these elephants were living. There was, changes to the environment where it was really dry and there wasn't any, there wasn't enough food for the elephants. And they had to walk farther to find food. And the elephants were obviously skinny. They looked horrible. Like you looked at them, you could just, see the difference. And they said these elephants weren't like the other elephants that had, joy, and they were playful, and, they enjoyed their lives. And, these elephants were just struggling, right, just to survive because they were malnourished. And there's so many people like that, even with technology and things. In the modern day world, there are people who are, living just remedial lives. They're not living a life where they have a chance to, evolve out of their circumstances, because from the get-go, there's so much deprivation, they have no chance. But they're human beings, and they're a part of the collective consciousness. They're a part of, all of our thoughts and our perception of the world, the vibrational condition of the human species. We're all connected, and, we're all connected to everything on this planet. And to become somebody of like a change agent, you have to be able to rise above the vibrational constraints and the collective consciousness of what's going on in the human planet, and accept the changes that need to happen personally, to the world and the collective, but the personal changes that all of us have to go through. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.